I want to thank everyone for coming this evening as the City of Linden remembers all the victims and heroes of that tragic day in our nation's history, September 11, 2001. This candlelight vigil has been held since this park was dedicated by the City of Linden after September 11th in remembrance of the victims of Flight 93. Many of our neighbors here in the 8th Ward are new, so I'd like to give them a background on this beautiful park. This particular site was originally a city-owned vacant lot. The tragedy and violence of that day hit Linden, and particularly the 8th Ward, very hard. One of our own, Wanda Anita Green, was a flight attendant on Flight 93 that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Not only was Wanda a neighbor and friend to so many of us, more importantly, Wanda Green was a mother raising her two children, Jennifer and Joseph, here in the 8th Ward on Park Avenue. Needless to say, our hearts were broken. With an outpouring of love from many of the businesses in the community, donations were made to create this beautiful monuments and design this park. The City of Linden chose this spot as the place to help many of the residents and the family members to have a special place to go and remember and heal. Tonight, I ask you to join our city officials as we remember Wanda Green and all the victims and heroes of that infamous day in our nation's history. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite some of the city officials who have joined us here this evening. To my left is Mayor Derek Armstead. We have First Ward Councilwoman Lisa Ormond, Second Ward Councilman Barry Javik, Fourth Ward Councilman Alfred Muhammad, Fifth Ward Councilwoman Rashana Cosby, 7th Ward Councilman Ralph Strano, and 10th Ward Councilwoman Gretchen Hickey. We also have several department heads that are here this evening. We have our city clerk, Joseph Bodak, our city treasurer, Alexis Zach, as well as the president of the Board of Education, Greg Martucci. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Chief David Hart from our Linden Police Department to come up and say a few words.
Good evening. I'd like to reiterate a few of my words that I spoke this morning at the Linden Fire Department Memorial. It is hard to believe that 911 was 18 years ago today. On that morning of 911, I was a sergeant assigned to the Patrol Division and was given the assignment of securing our neighbor here, the Bayway Refinery, with our police officers and the men and women of the refinery. I remember how surreal it felt when F-16 fighter jets flew low and fast over the city of Linden heading into New York City, and how numb we all felt. A few months back, I visited for the first time the New York City 911 World Trade Center Museum. I would encourage anyone here who has not been there to visit the memorial and the museum. It is a solemn tribute to all of our heroes, first responders, and citizens who perished on that fateful day. It is a tribute not only to the New York City and to the World Trade Center, but also to the Pentagon and Shanksville, PA sites. As a police officer and paramedic for over 33 years, I still feel numb when I look at pictures and listen to the radio tape transmissions of New York PD and New York FD radios. So please, I invite all of us to make it a point to visit the World Trade Center Museum and Memorial and to reflect and pay tribute to all of our police, fire, and emergency workers who died on that day, and to remember all of our brave, heroic citizens who perished as well, especially our own Wanda Green. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask the chief of our Linden Fire Department, Chief Joseph Dooley, to please come up.
Thank you, Michelle. I want to thank you for inviting the fire department to join in tonight's ceremony. And more importantly, I'd like to thank the citizens of the 8th Ward for allowing us to share this evening with you all as you memorialize one of your neighbors. You know, the idea or the goal of all of us who have been in the fire service or the law enforcement or first responders for these last 18 years is to always push forward the message of never forget. As I prepared for this morning's speech, I realized that about 75% of our department was not firefighters the day of the attacks. That's a lot of new people who didn't live through it. And so that really the challenge to us in the fire service and first responding community is to how do we keep that message? How do we keep telling people not to forget? But that same message applies to our citizens who also went through this tragic day with all of us. And tonight is how regular citizens continue to maintain the idea of never forgetting by coming out here tonight and remembering one of your very own. As I was sitting here tonight, I was really struck by the shape of this monument. The heart. You know, all the monuments that we deal with, that we see, are somehow or other emblematic of the World Trade Centers themselves, with scrap iron or cement, pieces of fire department paraphernalia. But here to memorialize this great woman is a heart, the symbol of love. And it really struck me tonight that this is the greatest way that we can remember someone, is with love. And that it is our only hope for a future of peace, And it is our best way of remembering someone as special to this city as Wanda Green. Thank you.
Detail, attack, hit, present, talk.
I would like to introduce once again the mayor of the city of Linden, Mayor Derek Armstead.
Good evening, everyone. First, let me thank Councilwoman Michelle Yamakaitis, Council President, as she spearheaded the effort to have this particular memorial erected in memory of Wanda Green. Like Chief Dooley said, this happened 18 years ago, and many of our new recruits on the police and fire weren't here. Many of our council members weren't here. But some of us who've been around a little bit longer, we actually knew Wanda Green. Wanda was a parent. She was active in her community, despite the fact that she worked for the airlines and had a very, very busy schedule. She always found time to be active in our community. I can only imagine what took place on that airplane. Wanda and the crew members and the passengers of that plane are heroes, because that plane was earmarked for destruction elsewhere in this country. They took matters into their own hand, and they made the ultimate sacrifice, not thinking about themselves, but thinking about the damage that that plane could have done elsewhere in this country. And God only knows how many more people will be mourning today had that plane reached its destination. So again, Wanda Green, as we keep her in our memories, is a hero. Her and the members of that Flight 93 are heroes, and we'll never forget them, as we should never forget the day of September 11, 2001. So I would like to thank everybody for coming out this evening and keeping her in our memories, and we should always remember that dreadful day. God bless you all, and thank you all.
As many of my colleagues have mentioned, tonight marks 19 years since that tragic day. I want to thank Mayor Armstead and our city officials, our police and fire departments, our Linden Naval ROTC, our Public Property and Public Works Department, and I would be remiss if I did not give a special thank you to the Central Jersey Drum and Bagpipes. They always make this ceremony add to the beautiful rapport that we have here every year. I'm glad Chief Dooley brought up about the heart here. I wasn't going to share this story, but in closing, I will. We brought up, my speech earlier was about how this park was dedicated. The year it was dedicated, that September 11th, I came here with Joan Turbot and her mom, and my children, my Tommy was in a baby, it was a little boy, and we just went and make sure that they came, reminisce, and we had come up with the idea to do this ceremony every year. And we were talking about it, and we looked up in the sky, and we saw a cloud in the shape of a heart. And I said to Joni, "Do you see what I see?" And she said, "Yeah, oh my goodness." So I said, "I guess we're right on target here with doing this." So I would like to thank all the neighbors and residents of the city of Linden that came out. I see some faces of some of the residents that moved, that knew Wanda. We have our VFW here this evening. I just want to thank you all for coming out here faithfully every year, and shows we will not forget. This is what this is all about. One of the radio stations were talking about the Kennedy message today. Where were you when President Kennedy got shot? And for many of us, that's what September 11th, that's one thing we could forget what we did 2 days ago, but we don't forget where we were, how this affected our country, how everybody band together as citizens of the United States. So we'd like to see that continue. So again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our Linden Fire and Public Works Department. We had some renovations here in the park with the flowers, and I know Mrs. Turbot is all excited. She used to, every year, Wanda loved flowers, and she would call Mrs. Turbot and ask her to go pick up some flowers for her front porch. So I'm sure Wanda is smiling down on this evening, looking at this park fixed up, having the new flowers planted. So great job, guys. It was like stone soup where they all came together and got this done. So we really appreciate it. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and I wish everyone a safe trip home.